Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. Wow, I tell you what, we have another powerful conversation today. We're going to be not deep in the weeds, but we're going to dive deep into currents shaping our nation and the global financial landscape. Joining us with us today, I'm just so fired up because this gentleman knows and understands the whole world economic system inside and out. Will Barney is actually a former banker with first-hand insight into currency movements, basically economic strategies, global shifts. And we're going to talk about that today because I know a lot of you have been wondering what is going on. I mean, Will knows what's going on. He's been watching all the patterns, studying the mechanics of everything, analyzing for many, many years. And so I just really wanted to have him come on today to bring some clarity to you all. And, because you're our family and I want you to know the truth so the truth can set you free. So without further ado, we have with us Will Barney. Hey, sir, it is such a blessing to have you
Hello.
on today. Wow.
So good to be with you. Glad we can have these conversations.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Will, for those just out of the gate here, for those who are not familiar with you and they're hearing you today for the first time, would you share just a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I spent many years in banking, both in private equity firms as well as in banking institutions, working on projects of various sorts, funding all types of construction, development projects, and even multi-story high-rise type situations. And while I was in the banking business, I began to see that there were some issues that couldn't be answered to my satisfaction, and began digging and finding that we have a current bank system that is highly corrupted, and it wasn't to the benefit of the people. And so after some time of digging in and learning some of this stuff, I finally felt that it was best for me to move on, and I left banking and got involved in humanitarian projects. Along the way of that, of course, we were looking for some large scale funds because some of these projects are quite large. And we ran into the Asian elders and a variety of other people that are all involved in the revaluation of currencies and bonds. This is many years ago. This is probably better than 15 years ago now, but we gained some insight into the changes that are coming, both with Nesara and Gesara. And so we've been waiting excitedly for this day to come, which has now arrived, when we can welcome in these changes that will liberate the world, not just America, but the entire world, from the tyranny of the financial enslavement that has been put upon the world primarily through central banks and their accompanying companies, collection companies, tax companies, and other things that are related to that. So with that background, we've been working headlong into project development to prepare some things to change the world, everything from soil restoration and remediation, from chemical fertilizers, all the way to new building products that bring the cost of housing down, and advanced level data systems that take us into new levels of privacy that are currently not afforded. So those are just some of the background about us and Enoch Global Services, our company, and what we do. And our goal is primarily we are building out a digital infrastructure. It's a big data center project designed to help humanitarian projects get prepped, get launched, get funded, and have the proper management and oversight to keep them compliant with the requirements of humanitarian funds. And we're building this infrastructure so that we can see thousands of new company project starts every year, so these projects can get going rapidly and keep going. So it's a big project that's probably the first on our list because it's so foundational to everything that we do. but we have many others that we participate in as well. So
Wow.
that's a little bit about us, and hopefully that helps everybody get better understand who we are and what we're doing.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You mentioned humanitarian funds. We're hearing a lot about when this whole revalue happens, that it is indicated that there is a not a demand, but there must be, like, where you have to give back 80% for humanitarian funds. Is that a true statement?
Yes and no. It is partially true. There are some assets, particularly, and the ones that have specific requirements of the range you're talking about are the Zim bonds.
Hmm.
Those are high denomination. Many call them currency, but they're actually bonds. If you look at the language written upon the notes, it talks about the bearer. The bearer refers to bonds. A bond's always held by a bearer. So those are bonds, and they were gold backed. They were printed for a short period of time in 2008, the double A series, predominantly the 100T and the 50T notes. However, even though they backed it by the in-ground assets of the country, Zimbabwe, they didn't have the physical gold out of the ground to back it. This occurred for it went on for almost a year, maybe just slightly over a year of the printing of these. The cabal got wind of it and shut it down. But what's happened since is that none of these are allowed to be printed anymore, of course, in the current circumstances. But the Asian elders have offered to fund these specific bonds as long as it went directly to projects. And so that's why there's a project requirement to the redemption of these, is that that's part of the requirement from the families that are actually funding this. A lot of people don't understand where the money comes from that's actually paying for the revaluation of currencies. And that money doesn't just come out of thin air and doesn't just come from the countries. Many of the countries of the world are indebted up to their eyeballs, and they don't have the ability to fund that exchange. So what's happening is you have a very wealthy family, names that you've never heard of or know, but they place their lineage and can trace their lineage all the way back to King Solomon.
Hmm.
He was very wealthy. King Solomon, those that read their Bible and understand a little bit of history, he married into 1,000 kingdoms across the world. A lot of people said, oh, he just liked a lot of wives, but it was as much about a political alignment as it was anything else. And so with every wife came a dowry.
Hmm.
And so he was known as one of the wealthiest people on the planet when he passed. His wealth predominantly went to his favorite wife at the time of his passing, which was his newest wife, which happened to be from Bali, Indonesia. So he left instructions, and a majority of the wealth actually went into that part of the world to the, let's say, the other wives were not very happy with what happened. They still did very well. It's not like anybody didn't do well over what came, but about 90% went there and the other 10% went somewhere else. So you had this concentration of wealth worldwide that now was concentrated in one part of the world, and it was held privately and securely, unbeknownst to the world, actually, for many thousands of years, actually. So what you have happening is a little bit of a history. I think this is important, is when countries were developing themselves, particularly late 1800s, early 1900s, we had what the world called the Industrial Revolution,
Right.
where railroads were going everywhere, and factories were going in, and steel mills, and all of this, and they need a lot of steel for all the railroads. And so this was going to be the big expansion of the world. And this family actually loaned the gold to many of the countries to do their big industrial revolution. And in exchange for that, the countries would give them back bonds. And these bonds would have a gold value attached to them and a monetary value with an interest rate. And so it was supposed to be that the countries borrowed the money, put in their infrastructure, and then later they would pay this back. But they didn't pay it back. I don't know if any of the loans got paid back. And so you had this family sitting on all these boxes of bonds that were supposed to represent the wealth that they gave to the countries, but they weren't getting that gold back.
Mm.
And so there was a series of things that happened over the 1900s, particularly in the United States, because in 1913, the Federal Reserve came about. And this family also loaned some money to them as well, for the expansion of the central banks and other central banks, and it went throughout the world. And this was supposedly going to be a thing that would bring prosperity. But as it would happen, it would end up being in the enslavement of the world, as everybody became enslaved under income taxes and everything. Every country that had a central bank had an income tax that corresponded to that central bank. And thus the people fell under a form of tyranny. And this was very upsetting for the family. These people are very spiritual. They want what is good. But even though if you were to say, okay, who could actually get the world out of this mess? They do have the money to do it, but they're unwilling to do it without change made. And this is what was shared with me, is that changes needed to be made before they would release a single dollar to accomplish this. So
That makes sense.
The confusion with all of the bonds is that the bonds were never to be public. They were never supposed to be in the public's hands. They were all supposed to be held in a private vault, and nobody would have known about it other than the family itself. However, there were children born in these families, and it was the responsibility of the parent to pass on to the children their responsibilities. Hey, when you come of age and I'm no longer here, you need to take care of the assets in these vaults. This is for humanity. Okay, that was the instruction. However, some of them passed earlier than expected without passing on instruction. So now you had children thinking they inherited this big vault of wealth, but they didn't know what to do with it. And so many of them took some of these boxes of bonds and began to sell them out on the market, whatever they could get for it.
Oh,
Right. And this is how they entered the public space.
Mm.
And so even though they were never meant to be public, they became public. And the family, at one point, was strongly of the opinion to just declare them all stolen and not worry about them. But as things unfolded, and as the day of Nesara came on September 11th, 2001, and it didn't happen, we had another event instead.
Right.
It became clear to the family that something else must be done, and that perhaps providing some redemption funds for these bonds to the individuals that held them, that's now being scattered over many nations and many people, millions of people now having these, that it would be a blessing, because instead of all the wealth concentrated into a small group, it could be spread among many people who would do many good things with it. So a decision was made that they would go ahead and honor the value of some of these bonds, essentially buy them a second time in order to bail the world out. And this would move funds into the hands of individuals, much like yourself, Francine, who could do great projects with it. And the requirements were that they wanted it to go to projects, not just, buy big boats and mansions and whatnot.
Right.
So this is why, and I realize that's a long story, but this is why there's some project requirements to some of these funds, is because they do want it to be shared with humanity. They want it to do some good in the world rather than be squandered by an elite few. So I hope that's helpful.
Oh my gosh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, a lot of people thought that this was going to happen, you know, during the whole Obama era and then Biden. But if you look at the situation, it seemed to get worse. So no wonder they were waiting for such a time as this time, because of who we have at the helm. Um, it just truly makes sense. So do you believe, because of who we have at the helm, Donald Trump as our president, that it is ripe in time for this to occur?
Yes. What's being done by Donald Trump is he's bringing in Nesara. Nesara came out of the farmer claims. During the 80s, there was a lot of banks that seized farmland because interest rates were at 18 to 21%
Yeah,
during that time. They were loaning money to the farmers to buy tractors and whatnot. And they, of course, they couldn't pay back that kind of interest rate. It was just an impossibility. And then the farms were being seized by the banks and equipment auctioned off and et cetera. So there was a group of farmers that got together and they sued the banks for fraudulent mortgages. And these lawsuits escalated all the way to the Supreme Court. By the early 1990s, it had come before the Supreme Court, and a decision was made after all the evidence was presented that indeed the mortgages were fraudulent. The banks had stolen the property inappropriately, and a solution needed to be provided so this wouldn't happen again. Now, most of those cases are actually sealed. They're not for public consumption. And that was because it would have created quite a disturbance if it were to come out at that time. But Nesara was written as the remedy to these wrongs that had been carried out by the banking community. And it called for the removal of the central bank, the removal of income taxes that go with it, and the restoration of sovereignty back to the people, and that they could actually own their land again, right? Instead of it being
exactly.
some kind of a rental type of situation. Most people are starting to wake up to the idea that if they buy their house but have to pay rent every year to the county and property taxes, it's not really ownership, right?
Exactly.
So they're waking up. So Nesara was created out of this. I actually have a copy of the draft that was done in 1999,
Mm,
and that kind of lays out the tenets for it. Now, I didn't see the final one that was signed because that's sealed. That was signed in October 10th of 2020 by Bill Clinton. And this was, as the story would be told, this was under duress. I guess there were some military people in the Oval Office who were armed and said, "You will sign this bill," which he did. And it was supposed to go into effect on September 11th, 2001. Of
mm,
course, that didn't occur. The cabal and league with the Bushes and Cheneys and others fought back against doing the right thing and extended this out further. So when Donald Trump came into office in 2017, January 2017, he began to make right what was not made right and push down the road. And so we've had a series of events. One of the first things he did early on was to visit various countries of the world. There's many videos played about this, about how many people capitulated to Trump.
mhm.
Um, this wasn't just an arbitrary trip that he made. Years and years, decades actually, went into the building of the case files that the military had on each of these world leaders. So Trump went into these meetings armed, sometimes with stacks a foot high of evidence against these leaders, and they either play along with resetting the worlds or be exposed for their crimes. Okay. So there's a lot that went in to lay the groundwork for where we are today. And so now we're at a place where he does have the leaders of the world on his side. He does have everybody working together in the same direction. And now he's able to start making implementation of the Nesara type changes into our world. Now, I doubt you'll ever hear President Trump mention the word Nesara or Gesara. It's a global derivative. I doubt you'll ever hear them mention it because these names have been maligned all over the internet everywhere,
Right.
and it would be ineffective to do so. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at legislation like the Big Beautiful Bill,
Mhm.
well, you could have called it halfway to Nesara
Right.
because it moved us in that direction. Okay. So there are, if you watch what's being done and implemented, these are all steps that kind of move us in that direction. We're seeing RFK Jr. reform healthcare. We're seeing the Department of Education be dismantled and sent back to the states. We're seeing the Secretary of Agriculture is setting right the whole food stamp system and the corruption that's in there. We're getting the fraud out of the system. So step by step, we're walking ourselves back to sovereignty, and that's what we're looking for. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah, because we've been hearing too that, we haven't stepped into Nesara yet, and others saying yes, we have. And if I understand you correctly, I believe that we are in the midst of Nesara Gesara because of what Trump is implementing already. I mean, and already stating about taxes and so forth. So, would you say that that is true? That that's where we're at. We're in the process of Nesara Gesara.
We are. It's not completely implemented because it takes steps to get there. One of the first things that he did, in fact, the first 3 days after inauguration, he issued an executive order creating a sovereign wealth fund for the country. And the sovereign wealth fund is to take all the assets of the United States and to put it under one umbrella where it could then be monetized. For those that understand business, it means you take an asset and you turn it into an income stream.
Right.
So what does this mean? It means all of the national parks, the BLM land, the Bureau of Land Management land, the 100 miles off the coast around the country that belongs to the country. All of this is assets of the country. And what exists on these properties is oil wells and mining leases and all of this type of thing. So by creating a sovereign wealth fund, it now brings all the income being derived from these properties into one place where it can be utilized, and that is the sovereign wealth fund. So very important strategic move that he made. Then in March, on the 29th of March, he put out another executive order asking for the modernization, the digital modernization of the Treasury. This also included Social Security. So Social Security and the Treasury had to undergo a complete update to all of their computer systems to bring it into a modern format. It was running on COBOL, which was a very old system before DOS, and it needed to be modernized because it couldn't be synchronized with blockchain unless it was updated. So they were given a date of September 30th to have those updates completed, and they were in fact completed by the 30th of September. And I spoke to somebody that worked in, which I can't say where they worked, but in Social Security, who did confirm that those were updated as well. So in fact, Social Security went live with the statement that anybody receiving Social Security had to receive it digitally and that they weren't going to be issuing paper checks unless you were just a person that couldn't understand it. If you were over 90 years old, maybe you might still get a paper check, right? But everybody else needed to go to direct deposit. So this was all about bringing alignment of the government systems and the money itself into congruency with blockchain and with the ISO 20022 specification, which is a specification of how to record financial transactions. And the whole world is moving to that standard so that everybody's reporting identically the same. This allows us to trade with one another, to have deals with other countries and between countries because we all report our transactions the same way. So all of these are part of the change of Nesara, bringing this in. So the old system is central banks, which the government doesn't own, and the new system will be the Treasury issuing the currency on blockchain, which it is fully compliant with now. So we're coming through a lot in 25 as we're now at the last month of 25. We've accomplished a whole lot. People should be super excited. For me, knowing about this, 17 plus years, I forget how many years ago now, till now, and to realize what's been done in the last year, I'm excited, very excited.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much he's accomplished in such a short time. We believe a short time, or what we can see a short time. But if we look back at, like you said, in 2017, but I think things have been rolling even before that, because he talks about the generals that the what is it 200 generals that came to unite with him. They knew that they needed someone like Trump to be at the helm because of where this country was going. And it excites me very, very much so, of what we're about to step into. I did want to mention something, and I'm going to put my little blurb here. Is my little broadcast here is you talked about monetizing, what's going on here, and we have where we're monetizing the Maha movement. And so if those are interested in monetizing the whole Maha movement, contact us at the 800 number there. One of our team members will get back with you, share with you a Zoom link, and actually give you $100 travel voucher for watching the Zoom as well. So there's the information there. So go ahead, write down the 800 number if you're interested, because this will blow you away. So we're excited about what God is doing and what the Maha Project is doing as well. So with that, I mean, what can people expect in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, if you listen to the president, he drops clues, but he's now openly stating things. He's no longer putting things in code. Okay. I think he's now realizing that sometimes plain language is the only way the sleepers can get it. Some of those things is, just a week ago today, there was held a cabinet meeting, and he stated in that cabinet meeting that in the near future, there would be an elimination of income tax.
Right.
In the near future. He didn't say how many months, but if you look at everything that's transpiring, when the Federal Reserve goes away, its accompanying tax collection agency, IRS, goes with it. It's a package deal.
That's
a lot of people don't realize that they're connected, but they are. If you look at the archives of the government, you will not find an act of Congress that created the IRS. Instead, what you'll find is various legislation talking about the IRS, but not the creation of it. The creation of it was corporate, and it's privately held to collect for the Federal Reserve. So what we can expect is instead of private central banks controlling the currency in a country, each country will then issue its own currency backed by its own wealth, which is the sovereign wealth fund, its own assets. Excuse me. So could be oil, it could be silver, it could be gold, it could be anything that is a natural asset. In the Middle East, they have a lot of oil. Well, oil can back their printing, right? A good example. But it could be anything that's considered an asset could back their currency. So as the countries begin to issue their own sovereign currency, they're no longer indebted. It eliminates all debt because they don't need to borrow from anybody to issue this currency. They simply can take a look at the assets of the country. And what you're going to see is that as these assets are further developed, as they become more monetized, as oil leases bring in revenue, as mining leases bring in revenue, all of that becomes additional asset, because as the balance sheet goes up, their ability to issue new currency does as well. So you can have the growth of currency without inflation. It'll actually be de-inflation, if that makes sense. De-inflation is where the money gains value rather than loses value. Inflation is money losing value. Like our Federal Reserve notes we have today, since 1971 until today, has lost 96% of its value. Okay. When we went off the gold standard in 71, it's just plummeted. You can look at the charts on this. So this is why the price of homes are what they are today. In the 71, you could buy a house for $15,000 to $20,000, right?
Exactly.
Well, now it's 400, $500,000, whatever, right? But if you deduct that 96% out of the price today, you get back to that same number where it used to be, okay? So it's not that sticks and bricks isn't sticks and bricks, or that cars isn't engines and tires. There's still that, but it's the value of the money against it that will be changing. So as we have, and if you go to the usdebtclock.org, they give you clues galore. I mean, they continue to pour out information there. This is run by the White Hats, by the Patriots, giving everybody a heads up of what's coming and how we're going. And so keep an eye on it. I encourage everybody to do that. What will happen is, as the assets of the oil production, the assets of the mining production, as that goes up, the value of the country goes up. The assets gain. And as the assets gain, the value of your new asset-backed dollar gains. Instead of losing money, you may find over the next 25 years that the dollar gains value. It could go up 30% in 25 years just by the utilization of the assets of the country and developing them to create more, to produce more. So what is happening is very strategic. If you look at the Department of Interior, the Secretary Doug Burgum of the Interior, he's over all of the federal lands. That includes national parks, federal parks, camping areas. It includes BLM land, all of it. And there's vast stretches of Alaska that are just being open to oil now as well. So what this means is that they're monetizing those assets. They're developing them into income stream. And this is going to be easy because if you're not awake, if you don't know that every dollar you paid in income tax never went to the government,
right,
and that's a whole nother story, okay? But if you didn't know that, you wouldn't understand how we can get rid of income tax and our country still runs.
Yes.
Okay, but it will, I promise you.
Yes,
so,
it definitely will.
So what's interesting is people that are utterly asleep, they can understand that these assets making money could replace income tax. That's a plausible explanation. And the reality is both statements are true, okay? So they're doing things in a way that even those utterly asleep can still grasp the change and see what's going on and go with it.
Yeah, that's good. So this whole thing in regards to tariffs, so many that don't understand are barking at this, but in actuality, it is so good, isn't it?
Yes. If you look at our heyday of our country, when we were probably the most wealthiest in terms of cash flow per capita, it was during the late 1800s when our only revenue was tariffs. The government actually operated off of tariffs. There was no taxation. Taxation didn't come in until 1913, and that was instituted by the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and certainly not a reserve. So it was I hate to use this word, but I guess the only word there is, it was a big scam that was put upon the country, trying to convince them that this was going to be their savior. What really occurred in 1912 was that Woodrow Wilson, the president at the time, was getting reports that there were prospectors out west in places like the Grand Canyon who were striking it rich, is supposedly the report. So he sent a geologist to go out, take a look at what was happening there, and to make a assay report of some type of what he thought was there. So this occurred during 2012, and he went out on the train and made his report. It took him a few months, and then he came back. But on the way back, he was encountered by the bankers first. They got to him first and said, "Hey, what'd you find?" Right? And he told them what he found. And so and there's actually articles in the New York Times from 1912 that talk about this, about reports of great wealth in the Grand Canyon. But the report was that there was so much in-ground assets of gold there that the bankers convinced Woodrow Wilson, because they spoke to him before the report reached him, that if the world found out how much gold was in the ground, that it would crash the entire gold market, and it would plunge the country into a total economic depression that would be unrecoverable. So here's what you do: make the Grand Canyon a national park. Put us in charge of the money and the gold. We'll monitor it, and we'll make sure that it doesn't get out of control, and everybody will be fine. And that's exactly what he did. And so it was a dereliction of duty. If you look at the Constitution, Constitution says the right to print money lies with Congress. It doesn't give it to any other authority, no outside bank or anything otherwise. So it was an unconstitutional act that they did, and as we see, it enslaved not the United States, but it was the first big central bank, of which there would be hundreds more. 180 countries had these central banks, and they were all owned by the same families, the same wealthy elite families, doing the same thing in every country of income taxes and everything else. So it's interesting as you look at what's happening here is we're literally unwinding this entire historical problem of enslavement, financial enslavement of the world, where everything is debt.
Right.
And this gets to how did the farmers win their cases against the bankers that led to the writing of Gesara? How did all this come about? If you understand the mortgage process, there are problems with the way it's set up. Our current Federal Reserve System, debt is the same as money. It's looked at the same way. If you have an IOU and you deposit that into an account, that's considered income to the account. Therefore, it's money. Okay, that's how they look at it. So if you buy a house and you take out a mortgage loan, you borrow this money, they want you to sign the documents, and you'll have an application. You'll put your Social Security number on it, all this stuff. Social Security number doesn't belong to you either. It belongs to their corporation, but they get you to be responsible for it and feed money into it, etc. And for doing that, then they give you a little pittance at the end of your life for helping them make millions. So it's really fascinating what's been going on. So a person goes to their closing, they buy their house. There's two documents that do not have a Social Security number on them that are very important. One is the deed. That's obviously important. It represents the property. And the other is the promissory note. The promissory note doesn't have a Social Security number on it because it must be signed by a living person.
Right.
Okay.
And they look at us as chattel, right?
So the corporations are what's known as dead entities or unliving dead entities, right?
Yeah.
This is why they need permission to exist. That's why you have to go to a state to get permission to have a corporation.
Right.
You need to it's a form of incompetency. If you go to them and say, "Well, I'm incompetent to exist, but I would like to have this company," they'll say, "We'll let you do this company, but you need to pay taxes." And there's no, you have to, okay, there's no option. You need to pay taxes, and you need to pay us a fee every year in order to keep this going. So becomes an income stream for the states, right? This whole corporation thing. So what happens? So with these documents, when they're signed, where does promissory note go? It goes back to the bank. So the bank could take the promissory note, place it into another account as a deposit, and your signature just paid for your house, but then they make you pay it all back plus interest. And if you go 30 years, you paid for it 3 times.
Yeah. What a
They don't have to put up any money except maybe that little upfront money for a day, but it's replaced by the deposit you just put in there.
right.
You
Mm,
see, this is where the fraud comes in a debt-based system. If it's an asset-based system, it's completely different. The bank must actually have those funds on their own balance sheet in order to loan it to you. That's completely different. And that's where we're going with home loans in the future, where they will have to be issued directly through with asset-backed money, and the institutions that issue those loans will need to have it on their books in order to do it. It eliminates the fraud. So we're in the middle of a vast change,
wow.
and those that are reading Telegram posts and everything saying it's going to happen on Tuesday are not watching the changes, because until all the changes are done, we can't officially issue the currency. If the new currency can't be issued, you cannot be paid for your revalued currency. Both the revaluation of foreign currencies and the bonds must be paid not in a debt currency, but in a asset-backed currency, because they are asset-backed
Yeah,
assets. Okay.
that makes
So
sense.
it's important that we don't misunderstand what's taking place. Well, great things are taking place, and I know some will watch this and go, "Well, I thought it was next week for Christmas."
Right.
I wish I could tell you it was, but until the Treasury issues the currency, I don't know how you're going to get paid.
Right.
Now, there are reports, I will admittedly say this, there are reports that some bondholders are receiving some payouts. But what you need to understand is the only people using fiat money to pay for bonds are flippers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the actual redemption itself. And there are flippers out there trying to buy for one price, hoping to sell it at the redemption for another.
Mm-hmm.
That exists. Okay. You should know that. So we need to be careful about information that's coming to us. And I hope that I'm giving everybody a little bit of a background so that you can better understand the changes, rather than just relying upon statements that come off of a Telegram channel.
Yeah, that's so important, because there's so much misinformation out there. You talked about uh, the banking system. Yeah, it's such a fraud. I think about the names that they utilize, and if we would just really take apart the names, like mortgage, that's the morgue, it's death, it's dead. I mean, all these things. And they did it all on purpose, because they think we're ignorant, but we're
Well,
finding out.
you have to realize there's two entities at the closing.
Hmm.
The one that signs the promissory note is a living person. The one responsible for paying back the debt is the Social Security number person.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Oh my
Two
God.
different things. Okay.
Exactly. One of these days I'm gonna have you on, and we're gonna go through that, because even throughout the banking system, like you said, you found out all these corrupt things that they were doing behind the scene that affects we the people. And so would you say, because of what that this would happen during the anniversary that Trump is planning, the celebration of the 250-year
We certainly get indications of this. One of those was last week with the announcement of the Trump accounts for children.
Yes.
Any children born in 25, 26, 27, and 28. So this term of the presidency will get $1,000 cash donation by the government
Hmm.
put into their Trump account. Now, it doesn't mean that others can't contribute to the accounts, but these accounts don't go live until July 4th, 2026. Isn't that an interesting date? That
Yeah.
suddenly we invest in the children on that date.
Wow.
These are indications that shouldn't be ignored. Now, I
Mhm.
do think there are a variety of things that need to be done between now and then that I've not yet seen. And one of those has to do with securing the new financial system.
Mhm.
If the new financial system is blockchain, which that seems to be all the indication,
Right.
we have part of the system secured. In July of this year, the House passed three bills. They passed the Genius Act, they
Mhm.
passed the Digital Asset Clarification Act, and they passed another bill to ensure there would be no CBDCs, another central bank digital currency.
Amen. Mhm.
Those went to the Senate. The Senate right away passed the Genius Act, and it got passed and sent to the president's desk within a couple of days, and he signed it. The Genius Act puts a regulatory framework around stable coins. And the
Mhm.
stable coins are all the coins that are backed by US dollars. It doesn't designate Federal Reserve dollars versus Treasury dollars. It just says US dollars. But if you look at all the companies issuing stable coins, and one of those is actually the one owned by Donald Trump's children, his boys, they launched a company, Western Liberty or Liberty Financial. I forget the exact name. Anyway, they launched this company and it issued a stablecoin. This stablecoin is called USD1.
Hmm.
And USD1, in order to issue stablecoins, is tied to the US dollar. In fact, 99% of all stablecoins issued worldwide, doesn't matter what country, are all backed by US dollars. Okay.
Okay.
So what's interesting about that is they give them in this bill, they give them a framework of things they can use to back the stablecoin so that its value is there. Now, the value needs to be either be cash, actual, Federal Reserve notes in this case, or it can be treasuries held by the government itself. And guess what? Almost all of them use treasuries.
Yeah.
So all the stable coins are now being backed by not by the Federal Reserve, by the good faith of the US government.
Wow.
And isn't that interesting to see how that's played out? And so, and they're a one-to-one basis. So even when the Treasury issue its own currency, it's still going to be called a dollar. In America, the dollar will always be what we call the money. Okay, that's what it will be. It'll just be who is issuing the dollar, right? Where's it coming from?
Well, won't it be
So,
silver or gold
so
backed?
that bill that now it's passed, it's signed, the president signed it, it's fully enforced. What that means is we can move dollars on blockchain right now, and we have full regulatory authority around it. That's done. What isn't done is the other two bills, the no CBDC and the Digital Asset Clarification Act.
Mm.
Why would they pass the Genius Act right away and wait? And now here it is, almost a week before Christmas, and they still haven't passed the other one.
Yeah.
Does it make sense when they seem to go together?
Right. No.
Because what does the Digital Asset Clarification Bill do? It brings the regulation to all the rest of blockchain that's not stable coins.
Mm.
All the other tokens, everything else fall underneath that bill. Okay. I
Wow.
don't know the delay, why there's a delay. I wanted to see it in September, no later than. Now here it is December and they still haven't passed it, and we don't know if they will in 25.
Mm.
What that says to me is that something isn't ready yet. Because the moment that bill is passed, the entire new financial system is fully secured by law.
Wow. And that has
So
to be
somebody is telling them not yet, which means that there's some things that are not quite yet positioned,
right.
obviously, until that occurs. Now, it could be we just have corrupt people in Congress, in the Senate, that just don't want to get it done. But I
Sure.
actually think the Patriots are in a little more control than we think. Okay.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
then it appears.
Hmm.
So I think there's a timing to all of this that will be very important to watch. Trump has issued an executive order banning CBDC. So at least during his presidency, there will be no CBDC.
Right.
But I do expect Congress to actually make that, a law, right, to
Uh,
back that up, because the House has already done so.
Right.
So as we watch this presidency and his various cabinet members, look at all the different secretaries and what they're doing, whether it be the EPA, at the health agency, the agriculture, the education. Watch them all. They're all doing things that are incredible. Transportation. What are they doing? Transportation. They're rewiring, quite literally, rewiring all of the air traffic control systems across the entire nation.
Right.
What you had happening is each individual airport had their own system, and they were trying to talk to somebody else's system, but nobody was running the same system.
Wow.
So what they're going to do now is the entire nation's going to be under the same system. This is part of what's known as the Golden Dome.
I was wondering about that. Wow. Okay.
So there's air traffic control fully synchronized across the entire nation.
Okay.
All radar systems. Now, a week ago, you had Sean Duffy talking about the work that they had done up to this point. So over the last 6 months, since he's been in his position, he has managed to convert a third of the outstanding copper that needed to go to fiber optics. They got a third of it done over the last few months. They still have more to go, but a third is progress. That means there's real updates actually taking place with our air traffic control.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So the Golden Dome is so much more than people think it is.
Oh, my God.
And that the air traffic control is all part of it. It's about a fully automated system where everything is connected together so that there is no way foreign objects that are not approved are flying into our airspace. Okay.
Right. Yeah, because we kind of thought, or I thought, well, a lot of people, that what he meant about the Golden Dome was similar to Israel and what they have for protection.
Well, yes, and of course it includes military anti-aircraft missiles and things of this nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much more than that.
Wow.
Right? It's a pretty big nation. We got a lot of area to cover.
Yeah.
We have airports scattered throughout the whole area. If everyone's got a radar and they're all synced together, you have complete coverage of the whole nation.
That's so good.
See how that works?
Absolutely. Wow.
So this is they use these names like the Golden Dome and stuff, and people, they don't understand what's really taking place.
Right.
And some of that is on purpose because they're not ready to reveal the whole story yet. Maybe I'm saying too much here. I don't know, but the reality is that it's all interconnected together. It will take the next 3 years to finish building that out. It's going to take time.
Wow.
Because they've got to get the rest of the fiber optics in. They've got to they're putting up all new radar units on every tower. Every airport's getting brand new radar systems, everything made in America. So all that's going to be updated. So we don't get to zero to hero in a day. We do it step by step, and we're walking our way there. Something interesting occurred this week. I'll be reporting on this on my podcast on Thursday in more detail. But they have created, you remember during the first Trump administration, he created the Space Force.
Yep.
Well, now they're creating the U.S. Tech Force.
Oh.
Being done this week. Okay. The U.S. Tech Force is all about taking the brightest minds in technology to update all of the computerized systems for the nation.
Wow.
Across all of government. It's going to be one of the biggest explosions of advanced technology implemented into government we've ever seen in our life. And it just launched this week.
Wow. And that would most likely, connect AI in a bigger way, I would assume.
It goes into, a lot of this is fulfillment of what Trump said in his first inauguration address in January of 2017. He talked about technologies that were held back and suppressed.
Mhm. Yes, that's
The
right.
implementation of the U.S. tech force is about bringing all that technology into the government, and in
Mm,
like kind, it will go to the people.
wow.
And that includes the technology in health, like med beds and
Yeah, I
other
was
types of
gonna
things.
say that. Okay.
So
Oh,
there's a process to how we roll out technology, and they're making sure that the government is ahead of the game, not behind. Because in the past, like I said, we were running an old system. Cobalt's very ancient. I mean, my goodness, most people haven't heard anything older than DOS,
right.
and yet
Yeah.
Cobalt was older than that. So it's like,
Oh,
we got a ways to go. So
wow.
this is why I say watch the steps being taken, and you'll know when we're close to a delivery time. But
Okay.
there seems to be a lot of indications, not just from the president, but the vice president has said this as well, JD Vance,
Hmm.
about 2026 being an explosion of economic activity unlike our country's ever seen.
Right.
Well, if everything is ready to go by the 4th of July, by our big celebration birthday, you can you can expect the golden age to launch with ferocious energy. It's going to escalate very quickly, and particularly if you have RV funds and bond funds to go with that.
Oh,
Look
yeah.
at how these projects are going to just explode, and they're going to go forward in a rapid succession. So jobs will be created. You're going to have infrastructure updated everywhere. We live in what many would argue the richest nation in the world, in the United States. Yet we have one of the most antiquated railroad systems in the whole world.
Right.
Why?
I don't
Why
know.
are why are we running on rails that are the same as they were in the 1880s?
Right. I'll tell you, honestly, I want you to answer that question because when we lived in Germany, because my husband was in the military, I mean, I tell you what, you hopped on that rail and it was like, they said 3 seconds, you better hop on there because it's gone and it's fast. I mean, so different than what we have here. So why is that, Will?
I've been to Europe on the high-speed trains. I've ridden them. When you can go from Denmark or Holland and be in the UK in 40 minutes under the English Channel.
Right.
Yeah, where is that train in America? Right?
Yeah.
There were reasons they were holding technology back here. They wanted America to be toppled. They
Mm,
wanted it to literally collapse from the inside out.
wow.
They've tried very hard. But there is great patriots, people like yourself, Francine, who are actually stepping up, putting out the word and saying, no, we don't go down without a fight.
That's right.
This is our country. We love it, and we're going to defend it and our freedoms in the process. And so we're gaining all that back. A lot of progress has been made on the censorship front. If anybody's been watching this, in October, something miraculous happened. All these Patriot channels on YouTube that were shut down during COVID magically came back online.
Well, you know what's weird though is that okay, so I cannot get my channel back, and we had almost a 500,000 people, okay, on our channel on YouTube. But what I'm hearing from those people that are part of our Rumble channel, and thank you, Rumble, is that they call me up or text me or email and say, "Hey, I saw your video that you did yesterday with Derek Johnson," and I'm like, "Well, I didn't do one with Derek Johnson yesterday." Well, it looks like it was yesterday. They're starting to play the old ones that I had. Isn't that something? But they won't give me my channel back. I
Oh,
tried.
you still don't have yours back yet. That's
No, I
interesting.
do not.
It didn't matter whose channel I went on to as a guest. If
Uh-huh.
it went to YouTube, it would get deleted. I was
Oh,
like kryptonite.
oh
Oh
my God.
yeah. People are like,
But how
oh
about
man, you
now?
always get stuff deleted. I'm like, you can't go to YouTube. I'm sorry.
But
And
now
they
you're
won't
on
now
there, right?
Rumble would allow that. But who's Rumble? Rumble's all patriots are backing that, trying to get free expression of thought back into the public space.
Right.
So the fact that many of these channels are coming back on, the fact that that is changing, and by the way, we started up a YouTube channel and every video stayed up.
That's awesome. So what is your
during November and December, all of our videos have stayed up, and that's never happened before to me.
So where can they do
that tells me that something's different.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So where can they reach you?
Enoch, ENOCH, Global Services.
Okay.
You can just do a search there, will come up.
That is phenomenal. And so they're allowing you to stay on YouTube now.
Yeah. All the videos are staying up.
Wow.
So it's that's, if we didn't have Elon Musk buy Twitter, I don't know if we'd be where we are right now.
No, I agree.
Because that was the big hammer to the cabal, is to say no more.
Right.
Yeah, no more. Exactly. We're gonna allow free expression again. So, and of course now it's called X.com. He changed the name, but that was a real turning point when he did that. Now, a lot of people look at this and say, well, Elon's a good guy. He's doing all these great things. I don't know if this is the original Elon. Couldn't tell you. Okay. Because the original Elon,
yeah, he was pretty,
took all kinds of money with it from the cabal and all kinds of other stuff. So I don't know what's happening here, or why he would suddenly decide to go after free speech and everything else. But we have a good Elon now. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of actors in this game, by the way, folks. A lot of people. There are people replaced and you don't know it. Okay. I'm going to say that clearly.
Absolutely. I mean,
and we won't get all the details until they finally roll the credits on this. If they roll all the credits, but I think it'll only be a partial rolling. Agreed. But the fact is this has been done. And what's unique about this approach, unlike any other time in history, if you look at every president that's tried to take down the behemoth of the financial system, they have been assassinated.
Right.
Lincoln was one of the first.
Yeah.
See, President Lincoln did something none of the others did. He went to the Constitution and he says, the right to print money lies with Congress. He had a dilemma. Lincoln's dilemma was the South has fired upon the North, and now he had to defend himself. Right? Where was he going to come up with the money to pay all the soldiers and to put his armies together to defend against the South's invasion? Because the South seemed to have unlimited money. Most people don't know this. The South was being funded by the Jesuits. And they funded them, saying, if you guys will prosecute the war, we'll put up the money.
Oh.
They never would have attacked if they didn't have financial backing. But they did have financial backing. Okay? So Lincoln goes to all these different banks. Hey, we need money. Will you give us a loan? Do you know that every single bank told them they would only give them a loan at the rate of 30% per annum? Highway robbery. It's usury, right?
Oh, absolutely.
He says, we can't do that. The country can't afford that. No way can we do that. This is impossible. So he goes home and he's all upset. He went to 3 different banks and they all said the same story. So now he knows they're in cahoots with each other. Okay. So he's a little depressed about the situation. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He's responsible. He's the president. And he doesn't know how he's going to fix this. So he pulls his Bible off the shelf and he pulls it out and he reads in his Bible for a little while to give himself some comfort, and he goes to bed. He wakes up in the morning and he has this feeling come into him that he needs to reread the Constitution and see if there's any solutions. So he goes to the Constitution and there he reads it, plain English. The right to print money lies with Congress. He's like, well, that's it. That's all we got to do. So he goes to Congress. He convinces them to print the money. So they printed what we call the greenbacks. And it was nearly 400 million. I want to say it was 380 something million greenback. Now, when that was printed, it wasn't backed by gold or backed by silver. It was just backed by the good faith of the U.S. government. Okay. It wasn't, as people saw these paper notes, They were like, what is that? I'm not going to accept that. So you had store owners, proprietors of various stores that the soldiers would shop at, so they could feed their families. They didn't know that they didn't think they wanted to take this paper,
Right.
but they would take extra paper. So, well, give me 3 of those for $1, and then maybe I'll take it. So it had a devalued amount. It was worth about a third, okay, of a normal Morgan dollar, whatever at the time. But that was successful enough that it worked. And many of the stores began to accept these notes everywhere.
Wow.
Because women would come in with these notes. Their husband sent them to them as part of their pay. So they started buying groceries with these notes. Well, that was so miraculously successful. It put panic into the hearts of the bankers. And most of these are European bankers, by the way. They sent to America a lobbyist for every individual member of Congress to work on them until they could persuade them otherwise. When the money finally ran out and they needed a second printing, Lincoln goes back to Congress. Hey, we need to do another printing. And he no longer had any support. The Congress had been so convinced by the lobbyists that they not only did they not print more money again, which was debt-free money, by the way, okay? They then passed legislation to form a central bank and borrow the money. Like, who's thinking about this, right?
Those that are thinking about themselves.
So as history would show, there was about 3 months of the war left when this occurred. And finally the war gets over. But by this point, Lincoln's very upset with Congress. He's upset with everybody because he knows the debt that's coming from borrowing will enslave the nation. And he begins to make public statements about this, that it's the central bank that will be the enslavement of the nation after they just won slavery.
Wow.
The battle on slavery. And that's why he was killed in the Ford Theater. Was assassinated. Then some 6 years later, they institute the corporation, the U.S. government corporation, with the Columbia Organic Act in 1871. And in the 1890s, you have Garfield, who says, hey, Lincoln's the guy that had it right. We just need to print more greenbacks and we don't have any debt and we can solve our financial problems. Well, then he gets assassinated, right? And then around the turn of the century, you have another guy assassinated, right? Until finally they get their way in 1913 and they pass the Federal Reserve.
Right.
But something significant happened right before that in 1912. When they created the corporation in 1871, the corporation started borrowing money in terms of bonds from the bankers. Those bonds were all due in 1912.
Wow.
And had to be paid back. And of course, there wasn't money to do it.
Right.
Corporations didn't have the money and the government didn't have the money. So the bankers work out this deal for the Federal Reserve. They say, look, here's what we'll do. We'll wipe out all the debts of the corporation, and we'll wipe out all the debts of the Treasury if you give us every dollar that's in the Treasury of both of those. And we'll reset everything. Wipe out the rest of the debts. And that's what they did and gave us the Federal Reserve.
Wow. Oh my God.
It's been in financial enslavement ever since. So it's important that we know real history and where we've come from and how we got there, because it helps us to better understand the times in which we live. If one thing is clear, if you've been watching this president, God is protecting him.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
And this is a pivotal time in history because Christ is coming again, but he can't come until certain things happen. Some of those things have already happened. If you go and look at Scripture, many of the signs of the times have already occurred. But there's a couple things that haven't. The gospel going into all the four corners of the earth, we're not quite there yet. You still got vast swaths of Asia and other places where they don't have it.
Right.
And why did all this come down? Why is it all coming down right now? It's It's coming down right now because Lucifer thought he could thwart the plans of God by pushing the timeline up.
Right. Exactly.
Of course, he's being defeated. He's being pushed back.
He's a
We're
defeated.
getting a time of reprieve so we can get ready.
Yeah.
So we can be ready for his coming. And so take this time, enjoy what you're watching. If you think this is all just Donald Trump's doing this, there's a whole lot of people involved. And the angels of heaven are included. Okay.
Amen to that.
and in what is happening here to give us that reprieve so we can be ready. And it's vitally important that we have a little bit of patience. I know a lot of people are sick and tired of the corruption and the everything else, but we're cleaning it up. Look what Doge is accomplishing.
Oh my, yeah.
Doge has accomplished a lot. We are week by week by week getting more done. It is, be encouraged, please. I mean, everyone be encouraged. We are seeing so many good things occur.
Yeah,
be grateful you're not in the UK and in Canada right now, who are fighting what just looks like communist whatever. Okay. It's unbelievable. I hear from these people. They email me. They're like, the censorship is off the hook in the UK right now. It's uncontrollable.
Oh yeah.
And you've got stuff going on in Canada. This is why you have provinces like Alberta saying, we want to secede and join America.
Right.
Okay. We're so tired of Ottawa and their nonsense, right?
Exactly.
So if you live in America, be grateful. It could be worse. Okay.
It could
be.
But
the whole world is undergoing a revolution. And the revolution is to take back their country. That's really what it is. To take it back from the grasp of the evil cabal and to regain sovereignty so that we can stand not on indebted soil, but on free and owned soil by the people themselves. Very important.
Yeah, very important. You just sparked a question in regards to like this whole reset, because like you said, I mean, every nation is going through a shift right now, through economically. I mean, everything. The people are starting to rise up. Many have risen up. So for this to occur, this revalue, does that mean that every single nation needs to be pretty much like what we're going through right now with the air traffic control and with the digital currency and everything? Does all the countries have to be like pretty much at a place?
It won't be exactly the same because each culture is a little different. So, but you're going to have basic principles that you're going to see desired in almost every country. And those principles are really encased in what you'd call Gesara.
Okay.
However, if you look at mass migration, uncontrolled migration, which is, what we saw with all the refugee marches across our southern border, if you haven't paid attention to what's been going on in Europe the last 15 years, with a massive influx of refugees, predominantly Islamic, and how it's changing their entire culture, and they're becoming very afraid there. It's changed. The uncontrolled migration is problematic. It destroys cultures, and we're literally watching it occur. I had a friend tell me the other day, they said, they're European, and they said, you can't even go to Paris anymore. I said, what's wrong with Paris? They said, if you go to Paris and you wear any kind of clothing that just looks decent, if you don't look like a bum, I give you 20 minutes and you're robbed.
Wow. Ooh. Wow.
They said it is getting bad there. And Sweden, boy, are they learning hard lessons in Sweden. So all these countries, they just let these people in. Their leaders said, let's be kind-hearted and let them in. And now what's happening? What's Donald Trump doing? He's shutting down the borders. He's saying no more. He's cut off the third world nations from coming in here that aren't bringing anything that he thinks are valuable. And he's getting the rest out. He's deporting.
Yeah.
It seems drastic, but he's doing what must be done to save the very culture of America. And I promise you, you're going to see similar activities occur in France, in Italy, in other countries. They're going to start standing up and doing the same thing. And a lot of people don't report this in America, and I'm sorry, my European friends, but we see the riots in the streets going on in Italy, in France. We see how you're protesting, even in the UK, against the tyranny going on. We know that you're fighting back. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing so.
Yes, yes.
Freedom only comes.
Mm.
It only comes by blood, unfortunately. And if you ever lose it, it usually costs blood to win it back. So do what you can, and by all means, don't ever lose it again.
Yeah. Wasn't it Benjamin Franklin that said something about, if you don't lose it, right, or if you can keep it, and I can't remember the whole
About
quote.
our constitutional republic.
Yeah.
So we've given you a constitutional republic if you can keep it.
If you can keep it. Oh my gosh. And I praise God that the Patriots we've stood our ground, and we're going to continue to stand our ground. A couple more things that you always bring up something in my mind in regards to like XRP and XLM. What does that have to do with, what we're heading into right now?
Well, what's happening if you look at the quantum financial system is you're looking at an intelligent but decentralized system. So in the past, we've had centralized currency, which is central banks. Okay, payments go through them, and money's issued by them, etc. What's happening on blockchain is that you have various tokens that are representing value, all types of value, and these you're going to continue to see anything of value move to a tokenization level. I expect in the next 24 months that the stock market will all be tokenized.
Wow, really?
Yes. And everything will be moving at the speed of light on blockchain.
Because it's pretty
right
much
now, if you do a stock trade, you realize it may take you 24 to 48 hours to fully settle that transaction, because the money still has to be wired and still has to go in and settle. It used to be what they would call 3 in a day or 2 in a day, the day of the trade plus 2 more days to settle, that type of thing. Okay. So what's interesting is with blockchain, and XLM and XRP particularly are super fast. You can settle those in 5 seconds. Right. And what's interesting about having a tokenized system is this. Many are calling it trustless. What does trustless mean? It means that you don't need to trust the party on the other end of your transaction, because the system verifies if they have it or not. You know if they have it or not.
Okay.
Right. So you don't need trust involved. Right. Because the system itself lets you know. So this is good, because it prevents the graft and the fraud and everything else. So you're going to see this moving. One of the things that I find interesting is a lot of people talk about in the past investment programs that are used for humanitarian funding, like was used during the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe after World War II. And these programs are often called high yield investment programs and PPPs and a lot of different names. Okay. And everybody's like, what's going to happen with those? Because most of those are trading in debt, and they are. They were trading in debt, medium-term notes or treasuries or anything else that they could trade. So it's very interesting. As we move to an asset-based system where the tokens are representing real assets, I don't see trading necessarily going away. Trading's been around since Adam and Eve. Everybody trades with each other.
Right.
It's really just a matter of, but if I have an asset that represents a piece of gold, I'm not going to give that to you at a 30% discount. No, that'd be crazy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You could do that with debt, but not with assets. Okay. But you might get a 5% discount, right? And so what'll happen is you'll have people they'll still be trading. The margins won't be as big, but the speed of the system allows them to do 20 of them in a day.
Mm.
So I still think there's still going to be possibility for those programs to still generate good funds to keep humanitarian projects going forward. We'll see how that plays out. But blockchain in particularly is clarity. You can't have more transparency than a public ledger that literally shows the transactions. Now, if I do a transaction with you, Francine, let's say that I'm sending you some XLM and I want to send you a dozen XLM. We can work out that transaction. Maybe you're sending me money in exchange or whatever, and I send it to you. You're going to have that right away. And that's going to go on the ledger. It's going to go on the ledger of the node that's closest to us, each of us, okay, depending on where we're located. But within 24 hours, that ledger record is going to be broadcast on all the other nodes around the whole world. So it's decentralized. There's multiple backups of everything, okay? Mm-hmm. So you can't have somebody say, well, let's take control of this node and control the world. You can't. It's impossible to do on a decentralized system. So this is designed to replace the centralized control where fraud could run rampant and replaced it with a clarity or a full transparent system where everything's found out. You can't money launder and it not be known.
Right.
They're gonna find it in seconds, right? It's just you're not gonna be able to do this anymore. So the system itself kind of keeps everybody more honest. You don't need to trust the other party. You already know if they have it or they don't. The system lets you know. Right?
That's
so
good.
It's just going to make it easy. That's why some of them call it trustless, because you don't need trust anymore. Although, I think that as people begin to operate in a system that is so transparent that they have to be honest, I think you're going to find that our society gets to be more trustful, right? Because we begin to act in a more honest way.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Well, now let me ask you this. With XRP and XLM, are they gold and silver backed or are they not?
Well, a lot of people talk about XRP being backed by gold and XLM being backed by silver.
Right.
That's actually not the case right now.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that it couldn't happen in the future, but they're not backed by anything at the present moment.
Okay.
I know it's a story. It's gone around Telegram a lot.
Oh, it has tremendously.
But it's not necessarily the case. What you do have happening is XRP is being positioned as a liquidity tool. What I mean by that is let's say that you're operating in euros and I'm operating in Mexican pesos, example, okay? Mm-hmm. And I want to send 10 euros to you. And I go to my local bank in Mexico and exchange my pesos for euros so that you can have it. The bank in Mexico, it needs to have 10 euros on hand and it needs to have 10 pesos on hand in order to do the exchange. It has to be double capitalized, okay, in order for you to get 10 euros on your end, okay, just an example. So how is that different with what XRP does? So with XRP, it's very different. XRP is the medium. So I can take pesos and I can convert to XRP, and XRP can convert back to euros, and you don't need to be double capitalized.
Right.
It's literally the liquid between. But if it's going to be that liquidity, there has to always be enough of it that it can handle all these transactions going back and forth, particularly across borders. Okay. Yeah. And you're talking about trillions of dollars that move every day across borders.
Sure.
So what does this mean? It means XRP is going to have a value that is commensurate with its use case. So if you have $250 billion moving every day, then the value of XRP needs to be higher so it can still fill that liquidity role. The other thing that must happen is if everybody's owning little bits of it, can it fill that role? No, it can't because it's held in private ownership. So I
Mm-hmm.
do think that at some point, there's going to be, in fact, I don't know how we do it otherwise. There's going to have to be a buyback where the XRP is sold back to the system so it can fulfill that role.
Mm.
And I would encourage people to take that opportunity because if they don't, they may find their tokens just turned off anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So when that buyback opportunity comes, it's likely that that could come at your redemption appointment. Hey, do you want to participate in the buyback? You just,
Oh, wow.
yes. And they may even ask you what you want for it.
Wow. That's really,
So give
huh.
them a price and you'll probably be happy. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, no, it really does. And redemption, we hear a lot about that. Some people say, no, you'll be going to your bank. Some say a redemption center. What's your thoughts about that being a banker, previous former banker?
Well, I'll tell you logistically, if all the public goes in, and I believe all will need to, at least adults, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you'll need to go in and show your ID and who you are because everyone gets something out of this event. Even if you don't know anything about foreign currencies, dinar or dong or anything else or bonds, you're getting something out of this. Why? Because the income tax was fraud.
Right.
Because they traded your birth certificate and made millions off of it, right?
Yeah.
You're
Mhm.
owed something. Okay.
Yes.
So everybody's going to receive something and it's going to be kind of age dependent. So if you've been paying into the system for 60 years,
Mhm.
you're gonna get a higher number than if somebody that's 24 years old.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
But you're gonna have to prove yourself. So you're gonna have to go in with your ID and everything and prove who you are. So part of this is um, everybody's upset about things like um, real ID. Oh, real ID is going to be, it's so crazy. You shouldn't do it. Just use your passport. Well, if anybody's gone through the passport process, you have to prove who you are, birth
Yeah.
certificates and all this stuff, right? To get a passport.
Yes.
Well, if you've already done that process with real ID, it's obviously going to be a little easier to show who you are when you get to your appointment. Okay.
Mhm.
I know that everybody thinks it's all nefarious, but it can also be used for good. Okay.
Right. Right. Just
So if
like
you have a passport, great. You've already gone through that.
AI.
So,
True.
either one of them is fine, but you got to prove who you are in order to get what's coming to you. And then I think there's going to be age groups. So if you're in the middle age, you may receive your funds over a period of time. If you're younger than a certain age, if you're younger than 40 years old, you may be required to stay employed in order to keep getting your tranches, things like this. So
Mm.
there'll be some requirements that people will have. But the bottom line is everybody needs to go. Well, how do you process 350 million people? It takes a
Right.
lot of centers, right?
Exactly.
Could they use the banks and could people go to their local bank because each bank has a certain amount of customers and they could handle that part of the population? Of course they could. I have a bank account at more than one bank, so I guess I'd have my choices.
Right.
I'm saying they will use the banks because here's the problem. They're not going to take new asset-backed currency and push it to you using a fraudulent banking system. You
Very
don't put new wine into old bottles.
skins. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. They're
Yeah.
going to move it to you via blockchain and it's going to go right to your digital wallet,
Yep.
which functions like a checking account. You may find 3 years from now that you don't need a bank account because your digital wallet works just perfectly fine for you. Okay. People
Mm,
will make those choices as they want to. So you could see a reduction in the numbers of banks
there you go.
dramatically. We could see an 80% reduction perhaps
Right.
over
Right.
time.
Mm.
So it's
Well,
going to be very interesting to see how that works.
yeah.
And so technically a redemption center could be done in any office building
Hmm.
because you don't need a vault to hold cash and everything because you're moving things digitally.
Right.
Okay. You can do it from anywhere. So it will take a lot of centers. Everybody will have to get an appointment and be processed. It will take a little time. How long to process everybody? Hopefully they'll have everybody done within a 3-month window. Okay. Everybody's done. So,
Nice.
but then you're going to have, then you'll have options going forward from there. So I
Right.
think that, I know it sounds really crazy and oh my gosh, that's so many changes and everything, but I don't think it's going to be as dramatic or as crazy as you think. You're going to learn it. Everybody gets scared when they hear the term blockchain. Look, several years ago, I can remember years ago, I didn't know anything about it either, but I saw where everything was going. I'm like, I'm going to have to learn this. Even an old guy like me's got to figure it out. And, I took some money and said, okay, I'm going to invest this money into my knowledge. And I started working out and figuring it out. Have I lost money? Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Okay. Part of my learning. So I don't want that to happen to anybody else. And that's where I think the Clarity Act and all these legislation pieces give us the same protections we enjoy today with bank accounts, we can have on blockchain with the passage of these bills. And that's what makes the public safe so that they can migrate to a new system that works 24/7, doesn't take banker holidays, even
Right.
works on Christmas afternoon. It's always live. So,
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah, I can recall my father said when the time credit cards came out and stuff like that, it was all new, to everybody. So, but we all got the hang of it, and we'll get the hang of this. So, what are some practical ways that people can, prepare for this and protect themselves?
I think the most important thing that you can do is to make sure that you have what you need to weather a difficult time.
Hmm.
If things go bumpy with the transition and they need to turn things off for a period of time, and people talk about this, 10 days of darkness, all this stuff.
Right.
I think they're trying to avoid this because if you literally shut off every point of sale system and had cards that were worthless across this country for 10 days, you would have absolutely mob rule at the end of 10 days, I promise you.
Absolutely.
People would be in total utter panic. Okay. I think it's wise that you have food, that you have water, that you have what you need to survive a period of time, whatever that is. Your heart's going to tell you the length of that. But I think you need to just have yourself prepared. And if you do, you will sleep well during any transition. Okay. You're going to be fine. The other thing that you're going to notice is that there's going to be an adjustment to metals as we go through this, because what you're going to find is that the Federal Reserve note is going to be collapsing against metals,
Mm.
silver and gold. And we've already seen this with silver. The last 2 years, silver has gone up 100% a year.
Wow.
Think about that. Most people don't think about it. But if you thought the stock market did well, silver did better. Okay.
Mm.
Now, doesn't mean it's going to always be that way. In the past, money that considered, metals money like gold and silver was always considered the most horrible investment for growth. It was good for one thing and one thing only, holding on to what you already had. Okay. It was a store of value. For that, perfect. But to count on it to give you an upside, it historically has been a very terrible idea. And
Mhm.
so most financial planners would only allocate to maybe 10% would be in metals, right? And the rest would be in growth strategies to get growth. However, some people did really well, okay, on metals the last 2 years. So have food, have water, have an alternative if something goes awry with your currency, meaning have a few metals. I just think it's a good idea.
Mhm.
Doesn't need to use them, or you're going to be required to use them, but you'd probably be a little safer if you do. If you have it on hand, you're going to sleep better. And most importantly, don't do anything that I'm talking about on the basis of fear.
Yeah, that's good. Mhm.
Everything that you do should be planned, should be strategic, should be thought through logically. Don't ever make decisions in fear. You know, God said, fear not on purpose, because most people that make decisions in fear make rash decisions that are bad for them and it never works out very well. Okay.
Very true.
So taking control of your life isn't about being fearful of what's coming. It's about seeing the trajectory of where you're headed and making logical steps that move you into coherence with that. So that you're not at odds with the future, but you're aligned with it.
Mm.
And if you'll do those things, I think you'll be in great shape.
That's so good. So good. So what gives you hope right now when looking at the direction of the global, economy?
Well, a couple things give me hope, and most of them come from the people. I have been so blessed to have interacted with incredible patriots who love their country, who love their family, who want nothing but good for their neighbors and their friends. And I feel blessed to be among you. One of the things that I have noticed most about this time in history, and I've been on this journey, I said, for a couple of decades. What I have seen is that the awakening has woken up some of the best and brightest souls that God has made.
Mm,
I think he has placed at this time in history some of the best warriors
I agree.
that was in heaven, and he put them here right now so that we might usher in the golden age, that we might prepare for a time when the Savior can come again.
Mm,
And when I get to interact with these types of people, and like yourself, Francine, who are doing everything you can to make the world better where you stand, it makes all the difference. You know, I remember a story one time. There's a group of guys in it was an apartment building by a university, and it was mainly university students that live in this university. Well, one of the students was a piano player and was having this piano delivered, and it was a baby grand, but still kind of big piano. And it had to go up the stairs and around the corner and into the dorm or apartment or whatever. So she convinces all these guys, come help her get this piano into her space. And they're all up the stairs, and they're huffing and puffing. They're all around this thing, and they got to turn, and they're turning, and they're stuck. They're stuck trying to make the turn around this stairway. And they don't know what they're going to do. How are they going to get this thing? And the one guy at the bottom's like, I got all the weight. I got to put it down. And everybody's screaming and yelling. And finally, one guy among the group, the wisest, and he steps up and he says, look, folks, we're going to get this done. I don't care where you think you are around this piano. Lift where you stand.
mm,
And as they did that, they got over the obstacle and they got it into the apartment. My encouragement, and if I had anything to share with any of you globally, is wherever you are, lift where you stand.
That's so good.
Lift in your community, lift in your neighborhood. If you see somebody across the street struggling, go help them. If you see a neighbor that's having a hard time with something, go help them. If you just do something for someone other than yourself, I promise you, you will come home feeling better than when you stepped out your door, and you will feel like you've made a difference in the world. And if we all do that, if we just lift where we stand, the world will be amazing.
Wow. That's excellent. Thank you so much, Will. I want to thank you for bringing clarity, as well as truth and a perspective in a time where a lot of people honestly have felt like in the dark. And with your experiences, not only exposes what's shifting behind the scenes, but it empowers each and everyone that's listening today and to your broadcast in general. I want to thank you so much because it's really helped, I believe, our people to prepare and to our audience, I say, you know what? Just continue to stay informed, stay in prayer, because we are definitely not only living in historical times, but biblical times as well. And it's, these conversations like this with Will that give us wisdom instead of, like Will said, living in fear. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Upfront in the Prophetic. Will Barney, where else can they find you, connect with you? YouTube, you said Enoch Global Service .com.
Enoch Global Services. Yeah.
Okay, services. Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Okay, now
it's ENOCH.
Mm-hmm.
The website is ENOCH, Enoch,
Mm-hmm.
GS, and that's for global services. So EnochGS.com is the website. And if you go to the contact us page, it's got our, X.com and True Social and all the other places you can follow us from there. But if you go there, you can keep in touch with us. We're all about the projects. We're building the infrastructure to change the world and launch thousands across the world, and to help every humanitarian to make sure they realize their project goals as well. So we hope that we can be of service to any of you in the future. We'll do what we can. Thank you.
That's awesome. I believe that your service also includes trust. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, we encourage people to use natural law trust. It's what we use. We put each individual project under its own trust for protection, for safety, for liability management. And so this is, I've used everything. I've used LLCs, corporations, nonprofits, 501c3s. I've been involved in them all. And nothing has worked better than a natural law trust. So it's the one I prefer. You can go to EnochNaturalLawTrust.com and you find information about those, or just notify us on our website. We'll give you information. I do have another company. It's unrelated to our humanitarian initiatives company, Enoch Global Services. It's called Enoch Trust, and all it does is estate planning and structuring and helping people with trust. It's unrelated to what we do here, but I have I'm not the full owner in that company. I just have some participation in it, but they're doing great things too. That website is not up yet, so we'll announce that when it gets up. But you can go to EnochGS.com and reach out to us. We'll help you in any way that we can.
Well, I love that. I love the name Enoch. I know that they hid that name from us from the Bible as well because of things happening. And again, I want to show you guys, if you want to monetize the Maha movement, make some money income from it, come on, earnings, then go ahead and dial that 800 number, leave your name, your email, and your number, and one of our team members will get back with you. Again, Will Barney, Barney, I'll tell you what. Glory be to God that God has anointed you for such a time as this, because you're bringing the truth to the people. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It was wonderful being with you today, Francine, and we'll do this again in the future. Okay.
Yes, we will. God bless you, sir.
All right. Have a great day.